I lost everything, now it's the bank manager's turn. The sun used to feel different in my old studio. It would stream through the big bay window, lighting up dust motes dancing around the lilies and roses. Petals and Promise wasn't just a business, it was my heart, built from the ground up after Leo's father left. Every bouquet I crafted felt like a promise of a happier day for someone. That morning the air was thick with the scent of freesia and hope. I remember looking at Leo, my sweet boy, drawing at the small table I'd set up for him and feeling like I'd finally done it. I'd built a safe, beautiful world for us. Our future was no longer a question mark. It was a plan, solidified in the savings account that was about to become a down payment. I was going to buy this building, our anchor, our forever home. Every dream needs a practical architect. For me, that was my brother Julian. He was the numbers guy, the charmer in a sharp suit who understood the language of finance that always sounded like static to me. "Sis, you've done the hard part," he'd say, flashing that disarming smile. "You built the empire, let me just help you fortify the walls." He managed my savings, helped me structure the business. I trusted him implicitly. He was family, blood. He bounced Leo on his knee and talk about legacy. He presented the loan application to Oak Ridge Mutual as a mere formality. "With your financials, it's in the bag, Mr. Albright is expecting you." I felt invincible, armored by his confidence. Mr. Albright's office was all dark wood and hushed tones, a temple of money. He had a calm, fatherly demeanor that put me at ease. Julian was by my side, the meeting was going perfectly. Then Mr. Albright leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "Sasha, your application is strong, but I have an opportunity, a private, short-term investment, high yield. It would boost your down payment significantly, shave points off your interest." Julian acted surprised, then keen. "Albright, that's incredible." They presented it as a privileged secret, a 3-month window. My money would work for me. The trust in my brother's eyes, the banker's authoritative calm, it felt like a gift. I signed the papers, my hand trembling with excitement, not fear. For 2 months I walked on air. I'd point out paint colors to Leo for his new room above the shop. I started a secret Pinterest board for the garden I'd plant in the back. Then the first thread pulled loose, a call from Mr. Albright. His voice was different, strained. "Sasha, there's been a volatility, the investment we need to hold." My stomach dropped. The purchase date was a month away. Julian assured me it was a hiccup. "These things happen, Albright's the best." But the hiccup became a chokehold. 2 weeks before closing, the final hammer fell. The investment was a total loss. My life savings, the money for our future, was gone, vanished into thin air. I stood in that same suffocating office, but the man behind the desk was a stranger. Mr. Albright's face was a mask of polite regret. "Without the assets for a significant down payment and given the now evident instability of your business revenue, the loan is denied." I felt the world tilt. "Instability, you have my records, this was your doing," I cried, my voice breaking. He didn't flinch. "You signed the risk disclosures, Sasha. We merely presented an opportunity." "The decision was yours." The coldness in his eyes was absolute. I stumbled out onto the street, the noise of the city muffled as if I were underwater. My future had just been erased in a 5-minute conversation. The collapse was swift and brutal. Without the capital to buy the building, the owner sold it to a developer. I couldn't afford a new location. Petals and Promise died, the bills piled up. The bankruptcy was a humiliating public autopsy of my failure. We lost our rented home next. The final box I packed contained Leo's baby photos. He clung to my leg, sobbing. "Why can't we stay, Mommy? I don't like the new place." The new place was a single, damp room in a bad part of town. The smell of failure and mildew was a constant presence. I'd lie awake at night, listening to the sirens, the weight of my son's broken heart crushing me. Months bled into each other in a grey haze. I was a ghost, working a dead-end job, just surviving. Then, while clearing out a storage box, I found it, a folder Julian had given me. Stuck to a prospectus was a yellow sticky note covered in his hurried scrawl. It wasn't about the investment, it was a reminder to himself. "Albright, confirm the 15% finder's fee. Family discount." The air left my lungs. A finder's fee, for my own brother. Why would he get a fee for me investing my own money? This wasn't a note for me. It was a mistake. A single damning thread, and I was going to pull it until their whole world unraveled. Grief is a fire, it can consume you or it can forge you into something new, something harder. That note was a spark. My sorrow didn't vanish, it crystallized into a cold, sharp purpose. I quit my job and took another, a night shift janitor at a corporate high-rise. It was perfect. The pay was meager, but the solitude was power. While the city slept, I scrubbed floors, my mind scheming, planning. I was invisible. They thought they'd left me in the dirt. They didn't know they'd buried a seed. I would use the darkness, the silence to learn, to grow, to become the thing that would climb out of the grave they dug for me and haunt them. My new identity was my armor. Katie, the quiet, efficient janitor. I started with public records, spending my days in the library. I traced business licenses, property records. I found the shell company that had swallowed my investment. It was linked to another of Albright's clients, a pattern. Then I found Julian's secret. Hidden behind layers of corporate filings, a mountain of debt, gambling losses, massive, desperate losses. Dates and amounts that lined up perfectly with my financial destruction. My own brother wasn't just incompetent, he was a drowning man, and he had used me as his life raft. The betrayal was a physical pain, a fresh wound over the old one. The final piece was the most devastating. I needed to connect Julian to Albright beyond a banker-client relationship. It took weeks of digging through old newspaper archives, birth announcements, social media deep dives of distant relatives. And then I found him, a black and white photo of a young man decades ago. The caption listed his name and his son, a young Mr. Albright. The same man was in a later article remarried with a new young son, Julian. They shared a father. They were half-brothers. The entire narrative shattered and reformed in an instant. This wasn't a mistake or a bad investment. It was a conspiracy, a calculated familial betrayal. They were in on it together from the very start. The truth was my weapon, but I had to wield it with precision. Recklessness would get me nowhere. I started a private blog, a digital vault. Every document, every photo, every bank statement, every incriminating note was scanned and uploaded. I created a timeline, drawing the connections in red digital lines. I wrote it all down, the whole sordid story, as if preparing a case for the most important client of my life, myself. This wasn't just for me anymore. This was for every person who had ever been made to feel small by a system designed to crush them. My revenge would be a public service. A week before the bank's annual meeting, I began my psychological offensive. I bought a single black dahlia, the flower of betrayal. I waited in the parking garage, my janitor's uniform making me invisible. When Albright walked to his car, I slipped the flower, tied with a black ribbon under his windshield wiper. There was no note. The ambiguity was the point. The next day, I mailed a folded, glossy brochure to Julian's office. It was for a high-end, exclusive gambling addiction treatment center. Again, no note, just a message. I see you, I know, let them panic. Let them turn on each other. It worked. From my cleaning cart, I overheard two assistants talking. Mr. Albright is in a state today, flipped out over a flower. I saw Julian's social media, a vague post about stressful times. The seeds of paranoia were sprouting. I upped the ante. I created a temporary encrypted email. I sent a single line to Albright's work account, a finder's fee for family, how sentimental. To Julian I sent another, does your wife know about the riverboat losses? I could almost hear their hearts hammering through the digital silence. They were rats in a maze, and I was the one who built it. While they were distracted by fear, I went for the professional kill. I had compiled a dossier on Albright's unethical practices, favoritism, funneling funds, the shell companies. I didn't send it to him. I sent it anonymously to the head of the bank's corporate ethics committee. More importantly, I sent a redacted version to his main rival for the regional director position, a woman named Evelyn Reed, known for her ambition. I wasn't just exposing him, I was giving a shark the scent of blood in the water. I knew she would finish the job for me. Julian was next. His financial crimes were easier. He had been embezzling from his own clients to cover his debts. I compiled the evidence, transfers, forged authorizations, the works. I sent it to the compliance officer at his firm from a different anonymous account. I timed it to arrive an hour after Albright's dossier, a 1-2 punch. They would both be reeling, unable to help each other as the walls began to crumble simultaneously. I imagined them trying to call each other, voices frantic, only to find the other line busy with their own disaster. The bank's annual general meeting was the perfect stage. It was public, live-streamed and packed with media. It was where Albright would be at his most visible, his most powerful, or so he thought. I used my research to find a minor shareholder who never attended and crafted a perfect forgery of a guest pass. The day before the meeting, I went to a thrift store. I found a suit, elegant, severe and dark as a starless night. It was my armor. When I tried it on, I didn't see a victim in the mirror. I saw an avenger. The morning of the meeting, I felt a surreal calm. I made Leo pancakes, my hands steady. I kissed his forehead, a promise of a better world when he got home from school. I looked at my reflection in the toaster. My eyes held a cold fire. This was for him. For the nights he cried himself to sleep. For the security they stole. I took the bus downtown, the anonymous guest pass burning a hole in my pocket. I walked into the Grand Hotel ballroom where the meeting was held, my head high. I was no longer Sasha, the failed florist. I was Justice. The ballroom was a sea of suits and self-importance. There he was, Mr. Albright, on the large stage, flanked by screens projecting his smiling face. He was mid-speech talking about Oak Ridge Mutual's unwavering commitment to trust and community integrity. The hypocrisy was so thick I could taste it. I found a seat near the aisle in the middle of the crowd. I waited. My heart wasn't pounding with fear, it was beating a steady, determined rhythm. I watched him, this man who had looked me in the eye and shattered my life with a polite smile. My time was coming. The speech ended to polite applause. The moderator opened the floor for questions. Hands went up asking about stock dividends and market forecasts, banal, safe questions. I waited my turn. When the moderator pointed to me, I stood. I smoothed my suit jacket and walked with deliberate calm to the microphone placed in the center aisle. All eyes were on me. I could feel the curiosity in the room. Mr. Albright's smile was still plastered on his face, but I saw the moment his eyes met mine. A flicker of confusion, then a dawning, terrifying recognition. The room fell silent. I leaned into the mic, my voice clear and unwavering, echoing through the ballroom. Mr. Albright, you spoke so eloquently about trust. I paused, letting the silence hang. Is that what you were practicing when you conspired with your half-brother Julian to defraud me of my life savings? A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Albright's face went sheet white. You presented a fraudulent investment, stole my money and denied my loan, leaving me and my young son destitute, all while your brother received a finder's fee for his own sister's destruction. I turned slightly, addressing the room and the live stream camera directly. This wasn't a business deal, it was a family affair. You see, Julian isn't just his client, they are brothers, they share a father. I held up a printed copy of the family tree I'd built. This was a targeted, personal conspiracy. They used my trust as a weapon. I listed dates, amounts, and the name of the shell company. I spoke of Julian's gambling debts, Albright's unethical schemes. I was methodical, factual, and utterly damning. The room was in stunned silence, a theatre of horror. I reached into my folder and pulled out the final piece. I held up the sticky note, enlarged for effect. This is his handwriting, a reminder to confirm his cut for destroying his sister's life. I looked directly at Albright, who was frozen on stage. You took my home, my business, my son's security. You left me with nothing but a janitor's uniform and a bottomless rage. You thought that made me powerless. You were wrong. It made me fearless. I could see the security guards starting to move toward me. My time was almost up. You took everything from me, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. So I've come to return the favor. I looked at the bank's board members who were staring in horror. Check your emails, the evidence is there. This man is a criminal. And this bank enabled him. As security gently took my arms to escort me out, I didn't resist. I kept my eyes locked on Albright. The screens on stage flickered and his face was replaced by a technical difficulties sign. The last thing I saw was him sinking into his chair, his head in his hands, his reputation dissolving in real time. It was over. The video clip of my confrontation went viral within hours. The bank takedown, they called it. The story had everything: family betrayal, a corrupt banker, and a victorious underdog. The public outcry was immediate. Oak Ridge Mutual fired Albright before the day was over. He and Julian were both indicted on multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. The bank, desperate to contain the PR nightmare, offered me a multi-million-dollar settlement. I didn't just accept it, I demanded it on the condition they also fund a financial advocacy program for single parents. They agreed. Today the sun streams into a new studio, bigger and brighter than the last. It's called the Reclaimed Garden. We teach people how to grow beautiful things both in soil and in their lives. In the back we have a small library where people can learn about financial literacy. Leo has a huge room upstairs filled with light and his drawings. The nightmare is a memory, but its lesson is etched into my soul. They took everything they thought had value, but they couldn't take my will. My story is proof that even when you lose it all, you can still reclaim your life. And sometimes, you can build a new one that's even stronger.